I'm Bob Jenkins, and welcome to this special Speed Week edition of Kart 89 Countdown to the Cup. We are just past the midway point of this IndyCar season, a time to reflect on who's doing well, who is struggling, and the changes that lie ahead. Now, as the teams hit the clubhouse turn and head for the finish line of the 80th National Championship, the Chevrolet engine is dominating for the second straight year. The Chevy Indy V8 has powered the winning cars in 9 of the first 10 races, from Rick Mears' season-opening win at Phoenix to Michael Andretti's victory in the Marlboro 500 at Michigan. But the races in between are the ones that are giving this season a flavor all its own. It's being called the year of the bump and run. It started at Long Beach, where Al Unser Jr. and Mario Andretti collided while battling for the lead.
I got mixed emotions about it, I feel good about it, but, we came up on Sneva, and Sneva stopped, and it was like a traffic jam, and I had momentum going. I ain't putting the blame on anybody. It's my fault because I did the hitting, but God dang it, they all stopped in front of me, and couldn't help it.
Next came Indianapolis and the dramatic duel between Unser Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi for the win in the closing laps. They too collided, but neither blamed the other, and Fittipaldi survived to take his first Indy triumph. Then at Detroit, Fittipaldi and Mario Andretti traded bodywork twice. At Portland, Unser Jr. and Scott Pruitt tangled. In Cleveland, it was a family matter between the Andrettis on pit road. And then there was the Meadowlands, where the contact was between Fittipaldi and Bobby Rahal. Finally, at Toronto, Michael Andretti and Fittipaldi brushed, then Mario's race ended with more than just a little bump off Roberto Guerrero's parked March. When the dust settled, Emerson Fittipaldi had established a commanding lead in the chase for the PPG Cup. Car owner Pat Patrick calmly assessed the first half of the season.
Say what you like, but when you have as many bumps as we've had and many wheel bangers and still stay on the track, it's just been a very lucky year for us.
Indeed it has been, as the two-time Formula One champion has racked up 4 victories and a 34-point bulge over Rick Mears, his nearest challenger. Fittipaldi leads in almost every statistical category: laps led and laps completed, and tying Mears for the lead in pole positions with 3. In the process, he's received the Indianapolis 500's first $1 million winner's purse and appears to be well on his way to a kart single-season earnings record.
No, I would say that we are running strong, but the last 2 races, Bobby Rahal and Michael, they were strong, and the other people running strong. But I think we have been consistent strong. That's the key. On every track we go, we are quick. And I think that's counting a lot, but I never expect to be as consistent as we are.
There's a touch of truth to what Emo has to say, for while he has dominated the first half of the season, another driver looks at the season it could have been.
Michael Andretti running in the lead. Just like his father several years ago, the engine has let go. He coast to a stop on the track from the lead. Michael Andretti out of the 500.
We have trouble on Michael Andretti's car. It's stuffed into the wall, and that's the end of the day for the young man who dominated the event.
Michael Andretti is overhauled by Rick Mears, and Mears begins to pull away now as Michael drops backward.
Michael Andretti has led 9 of the first 10 events and has turned the Andretti luck around with victories in the last 2 IndyCar races.
We've been having some problems during the year just getting to the finish line. We've been competitive. I think both my father and myself, and led many races, had him pretty much in control, and something stupid would happen. One
thing the Haviland Kmart team has done is change its pit procedures after 2 instances this year in which Michael and his father Mario collided on pit road.
It was just bad timing. Dad was just far enough behind that when he did come in, that was when I was going out, and it was just a bad deal. As for Cleveland, it was exactly the same thing. Timing was off. But we have improved things since then. Our procedure is a bit different now in the way each of us exits a pit. We have a different man watching for guys coming down pit road.
With his current winning streak, Michael feels there's life remaining in his bid for a first PPG Cup title.
Anything can happen. There's still a lot of races left, and our Kmart Haviland team is not giving up. We're going flat out, and all we can see is, #1 spot, and that's what we're going for.
Michael's looking to win his 3rd in a row this weekend at Pocono, a track that he has never won on. almost 2 years ago, the Porsche IndyCar made a quiet debut, finishing 21st at Laguna Seca. However, the payback from those trying times appears to be near. Ex-Penske team manager Derek Walker was determined to make a successful debut with his new team. By mid-March, however, the late-arriving Porsche was at Phoenix trying to make up for lost time.
There's a number of things we can do, but in this time frame, we've just got to keep our heads and just, you know, pick away at the car and get it reliable and get it where we know we can be competitive for this race. There's a number of things we can do, but we just don't have the time.
After finishing 6th at Phoenix, Bobby suffered a long month of May, but quickly turned things around by winning his first pole for the chassis at Portland. With an updated version of the Porsche engine, Bobby blasted around the Michigan Oval to a front row starting spot for the Marlboro 500. As other contenders dropped out, the new power plant proved reliable as Bobby drove it to second, the team's best IndyCar finish.
Yeah, it's been a good improvement, but to get from 10th to 4th, which is typically our finishing place lately, you know, is one step, but to get from 4th to 1st is a little bit harder at the moment.
Bobby Rahal wins the Champion Spark Plug 300 from Laguna Seca. A win in the race and a victory in the overall championship.
When Bobby Rahal left True Sports after a long career that brought back-to-back PPG Cup titles, the team searched for a replacement. Several drivers were tested, among them IMSA GTP champion Jeff Brabham and fellow road racing veteran Scott Pruitt. After much deliberation, Pruitt got the nod and is learning as he goes in his first full IndyCar campaign.
It's been tough. I mean, it's been exciting, but it's been a lot tougher than I really anticipated, and it's been nice because it's been a real challenge. It's been I've really had to push myself sometimes more than I've ever been, you know, pushed before, and it's been, you know, something that comes from inside that you really have to get out there and work for every little bit out there.
You know, I think we've done, probably by our standards, relatively well. We could have done better in some areas. Obviously, with Scott, a new driver in the team, fitting in, etc., he's done really well for us. I'm excited with his potential. He's driven some really good races for us. I think in reality, for us to go further, he needs some more experience yet, but we've got to start giving him better equipment because the level of competition is really tough right now.
After a slow start, Pruitt has adjusted well to the rigors of ovals, new tracks, and different competitions. He put together a string of 6 top 6 finishes, a stretch in which he came up short of victory by just a few laps at Detroit.
It's been a pretty steep learning curve. My personal confidence has been a lot better. Things have really solidified with the team and with the members of the team because, you know, Bobby Rahal was there for 7 years and really established a lot of personal relationships with those people and a lot of success. And another driver just doesn't step in there and get the respect of the team that he may want. He has to earn it.
In any form of competition, becoming a series champion is the pinnacle of sporting success. Defense of that claim can be even more thrilling. For Danny Sullivan, kart's reigning series champion, that challenge suffered a setback, but he started a comeback. Danny Sullivan suffered a broken arm in a grinding crash during practice at Indianapolis. It eliminated him from pole contention, and he was forced to qualify on the second weekend. He dropped out early, finishing 28th, and gamely labored on at Milwaukee, but the twists and turns of the street course in Detroit were too much for the injury.
Because you just feel like you're, I don't know, wimping out or something if you quit, but it's just, you know, especially when you're running, you know, those decisions are easy if you're in 44th place or something ridiculous, but when you're running third, it's just...
Sullivan gave up his seat to Jeff Brabham at Portland and Al Unser at Cleveland. The hope of a second straight title, however, was virtually gone.
It's been frustrating. You know, the hardest part is when you break your arm and everything's starting off good and you know you've got a good car and everything's there, and then to be knocked out by something like that.
As Sullivan's season changed to a goal of individual race wins, his stablemate Rick Mears became the team's only challenger to Fittipaldi.
There's still a lot of races left, and some places can always change very quick, but we're trying to hang in there and get some points.
Can you win the championship?
Oh yeah, it's always possible. I mean, things can change very fast in this business. You know, 1 or 2 races can turn things around very quick. So we're definitely still in the hunt, and we're going to try to win it.
Mears has parlayed wins at Phoenix and Milwaukee and given a steady performance on the street courses on the midseason. but he's philosophical about being beaten by a chassis built by his car owner.
They're doing a good job. They did some good early season testing. I think they found a few things, and they've been working very hard to keep everything going.
You know, most people are talking about, well, Roger sold them a PC-18, and they're the ones that's winning, and the Penske team isn't. Any reason that you can put your finger on?
No, not really. You know, if we knew the reason, we'd change them.
11 drivers are still in mathematical contention for the 1989 IndyCar Championship, but realistically, the title fight is shaping up to center around the veteran from Brazil and the three-time titleist from Bakersfield. After 19 years of campaigning in IndyCar from the cockpit and the checkbook, Dick Simon celebrated the new year by hanging up his helmet and focusing on full-time team ownership. Simon has been a mentor to countless racers and has gone the extra mile to attract sponsors to the IndyCar scene. And we think you'll find his philosophy on racing refreshing.
A lot of people say, you know, he never gets tired, he never shows any exhaustion, but my wife suffers most of all from that, because when I get home at night, I'm not much to visit with. I just plain fall asleep right away, but it doesn't show during the daytime.
Support is headed by wife Diane, who oversees the office, which just happens to double as a sewing shop and a travel agency. All are housed at an old fire station just down the road from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
And it's exciting when you can buy, as we have here today, a fire shop that used to be a firehouse, converted into a race shop. We bought it for $55,000. It's only a fraction of the square footage of some of the other shops. And then when you go to the racetrack, you can stand proud, because as you look at our tractor trailers and you look at the tents and awnings and the way the people are working, and then you look over at the Patrick's, Penske's, and now Vince Granatelli's team who bought the Cotter team, and you look at where they're at the racetrack, where we're at the racetrack, and you realize that where you work, the size of the building is not really the key. It's the people, and it's your attitude, and it's what you do with what you've got.
You know when you win your own race. You know when you did a better job, even though the record book doesn't show it. So many things can go wrong. But there is a certain amount of satisfaction in this world of having the world know it. And unless you win, the world doesn't really recognize you as a winner. But we recognize ourselves as winners, and we recognize our people as winners, because they're creating miracles every time we go out.
To have less and to do more with it is the key. And we, for years, have learned to, because I came up through a family where my mother had multiple sclerosis, died young, my father took off. I had to raise my younger brothers and sisters, and I went through college on a ski scholarship, and we had nothing. And yet we went on to great heights in many sports activities, and the only one we haven't achieved at this point is winning an Indianapolis-type race. In my opinion, we are close, and to take less and to achieve that is a bigger satisfaction to me than having lots of money and winning it.
So as Simon continues his philosophy of less is more, the IndyCar community is looking at a brand new ownership combination. At Portland, Maurice Cranes, owner of Craco Racing, and Rick Gallus, the owner of Gallus Racing, announced they would merge their teams for the 1990 season. The move came while Craco was and is in a development program with the Cosworth, but the merger puts the team in the Chevy camp for 1990. Craco's new driver, Bobby Rahal, is the only IndyCar driver to beat a Chevrolet over the last 2 years, using Judd Power at Pocono in '88 and taking the rain-aborted Meadowlands event last month.
This is a hell of an opportunity for me and for the team. I know that it's going to be great to have Chevy, but it's also going to be great to be with Rick, and great to have Al, because I know with Al I can be honest with him, and he's going to be honest with me, and you know, we get along off the track, and I know we get along on the track, and as teammates I think we're going to be pretty tough to beat next year.
Barry Green, the veteran Craco team manager, would like to start his own team, but dollars are a factor.
Well, I've definitely given it some consideration for many years. I mean, I would love to have my own team, but I do all the budgets, you know, for this team and teams in past, and I know what it takes, and the numbers are pretty frightening. and unfortunately I don't have very deep pockets. As to exactly where I go and what I do next year, I haven't made any commitments or made my mind up.
Meanwhile, other rumors and what-ifs have started surfacing in various stables along pit road. As Fittipaldi kept racking up high finishes, speculation had him and his sponsor going to the Penske team.
We're still talking. We've agreed in principle, but the numbers haven't quite matched yet.
What about sponsorship? We hear that the Marlboro sponsorship may be going to Penske. Has that been firmed up for 1990?
I understand that they're going to be with Penske. We do have some things in place for 1990.
Sponsorship is also a large factor at Porsche, which is weighing a two-car 1990 effort.
For us to field a second car, we really need to have the sponsorship to cover it. So first step is find an adequate sponsorship. So when we get that, I think the decision will be fairly easy. We will be right there with two cars.
And guess whose name is being mentioned by Railbirds for that second car?
What are you going to do next year?
Well, I'm going to drive some Indy cars.
Do you know for whom, and will it be with Roger?
Don't know at the moment.
Would you entertain the possibility of a second driver in the Porsche team?
You know, all I know is I'm going to drive some cars next year, some Indy cars, and that's all I really want to say about it.
Would you prefer to stay with Roger?
Yeah, I'd like to be right where I am, and, you know, the plan at the moment is just for that to happen, but, you know, we just got to get all our ducks in a row.
It would seem possibly a natural combination for Danny Sullivan to come over here with your Penske past and his Penske past. Is that a possibility?
I don't know what his position is with Roger and his negotiations. If he was available, he'd certainly make a very good driver for Porsche, yeah.
The 1990 rules announced by CART last October dictate a new car design by the manufacturers to improve safety features and require modifications to current cars for them to remain eligible to compete. The major changes include moving the driver back 10 inches so their feet are behind the center line of the front wheels. Also proposed is reduction of the air escape of the tunnels by 2 inches from 10 to 8, slowing the escalating progress of speed. Now, these rules were challenged in a recent owners' meeting, with a reported 2/3 of the owners voting to leave 1989 rules in place for next year. Drivers voted unanimously to apply the 1990 rules with improved safety features in place, and their driver representative on the CART board is adamant.
And of course, with the new rules, we're moving the driver back. So, number one, if there is a front impact, you have less chance of having foot injury. Number two, the driver is further away from the front wheels, whereby the wheels have less chance of coming into the cockpit structure. So these are valid points, and as I said, we've had grim experiences in these areas, and we're trying to cure that, and I defy any owner that can be sensitive enough to realize that I don't know how you can put a price on the life of a driver or life or injury of a driver.
Andretti has one vote when the CART board meets to decide the issue. Pat Patrick will have another, and he's heard a different message from his fellow car owners.
If the rules are changed, we in effect obsolete every race car on the circuit. There's probably 70 or 80 race cars out there, and you can say from $100 to $150,000 each, so you're looking from $7 to $10 million of equipment that would just be total junk under the new rules. And I think the owners finally discovered what was happening and said, hey, we don't need this.
The issue boils down to safety and finances. The opposition car owners say modifications to their current machines would make the cars up to 20 miles an hour slower. Drivers have annually campaigned for improved safety measures. For several months, manufacturers Lola, March, and Penske have been designing new cars anticipating the proposed 1990 rules. It's an issue where compromise will be difficult. A major change took place in the hierarchy of championship auto racing teams. John Caponegro, who had served CART as Director of Administration and Executive Vice President, was elected President and put in charge of the organization's day-to-day operations. The 33-year-old attorney, a protege of CART Chairman John Frasco, is a member of his law firm. I visited with John as he reflected on CART's first 7 months under his direction.
Well, Bob, we've had a extremely great start of our season this year. We've had probably the most competitive racing that we've ever had in the CART series to date in our 10-year existence, and I can see that happening more in the future. We've made some strides and continue to increase our off-the-track goals of increased track attendance and increased television network ratings and more sponsors and a better take for the owners who really are the heartbeat of the series. So I think all in all, for the first 10 races of the 1989 season, we're doing well.
We have seen some bumping incidents in the late stages of IndyCar racing this year. What are your thoughts about those?
Those are things which people talk about well beyond the Monday after race week when they read the results in the paper. What that does is it stirs a little bit of controversy, whether factual or fictional, between the drivers, and those are the things that appeal to fans. If it takes that type of incident to generate new and different fans, that's good to an extent. My personal feeling is that it can become dangerous, and being that we live in this IndyCar family, I for one, like the mix-up and the close racing, but the last thing I want to see is anybody get seriously hurt.
How do you answer those that criticize IndyCar racing because the Chevy engine isn't available to all teams?
We shouldn't knee-jerk react to the Chevrolet competitive advantage at this time. The key, I believe, is to make sure our series is stable, is growing, more manufacturers will come in, and sooner or later, and it'll be sooner than later, as you see in the Porsche case, there's going to be this will be a very competitive engine series.
Let's talk about the 1990 schedule. It hasn't been announced yet, but will there be additions and deletions?
I don't want to blow the lid off of a few announcements that are going to be forthcoming in the next several weeks, but it's been a lot of talk has been focused on some races in Denver and Vancouver, and those cities are ones that will be very, very good additions to the CART schedule and to our championship.
How about the deletions? Now, we hear stories about road courses like Mid-Ohio and Elkhart Lake having to be dropped in favor of street races and those that are closer to a metropolitan community. What about that?
Well, in 1990, save for safety-related concerns, there will be no dropping of any races on our CART schedule.
So you'll be back at Mid-Ohio and Elkhart Lake and Milwaukee and all of those?
Yes, we will.
We leave you with their annual memorabilia auction at Michigan. Thanks for joining us. So long, everyone.
$2 here, gentlemen here in the black shirt, number 211.